Hello friends and welcome back to Learn Visual Studio. In the last couple of videos we have learned about different features and windows of Visual Studio. So in this tutorial or in this video we will learn how to debug a program. So for learning purpose we have used C++ program. So here we have a code to debug. So once you understand how to debug a program, the languages doesn't matter. So just for learning purpose we have taken a C++ program. So as to debug a program, you should compile your project using debug mode. So it will create debug symbols for your project or your code. Then set your program as startup project that I have already done. So in this tutorial, we will look how to debug exe, but not how to attach your program or your project to existing application, or how to attach your project or a code for debugging to application which is running on different machine, which is called as remote debugging. So in this tutorial we will just cover a basic debugging stuff. So let's start. So as to start debugging, you have to set a breakpoint. As you can see here, we have set our first breakpoint, and whenever, okay, so what is breakpoint? Breakpoint is a point where at a particular line which indicates runtime execution, to say whenever you came across any such thing, you just wait for my next instruction. So here we say runtime wait for my instruction whenever you came your execution point to this line number 13. So we have all said that we have already set our compilation type as debug mode. Then we have set our breakpoint at start of the program. Then we have set our project as a startup project, so whenever we start the execution to Visual Studio will directly run a program for this project. Now we will say compile. If you say directly run, it also works fine, because it if it is not compile, it will compile for you and then start execution. So it is done. So now we will say F5 or go to debug menu and say start debugging. So start execution or start debugging will execute line by line program from your project, and whenever it came across any particular any debug first debug point, it will wait for your next instruction. So F5. So here you can see that it has started execution from one by one, and it encounters first breakpoint, so it is waiting for my next instruction. Now few things about the debugging, that is, of course you want to execute line by line all the stuff and verify things or variable values. So how to execute a line at which your currently execution point is? So basically we use F10 F10 to execute the current line and go to next line, execute the current line uh, instruction, all the instructions, and go to next line. If you want to go into a particular function, say in at this line, you if you have your execution at this line, and if you don't want to jump to directly next line by executing the entire content from this line, but you want to go into this function, that is you want to execute line by line from this function, then that stuff is called as step into. So for that we use F11. So first we will just look at F10, then we will look at F11, so as to better understand. So right now I can say F10, which will move the execution point to next line by executing after execution of this line. So F10. Similarly, it will go to next line F10, 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 and once we reach to end of our project, it will simply just exit. Okay, so now we will look at F11. Now we will come to this line first by F10, F10, and right now I want to go into this, I want to go to at this point. So there are two ways again. You can either say F11, it will just simply step into that function, or you can set a breakpoint over here again and say F10. So we will first look how F10 can be used to step into. So we set our first our breakpoint into that function which you want to go into step into, and then I say F10. So instead of clicking keyboard, F10 will just show by menu. So we are we have done step into. Again F10, F10, and exit. Then how we can use F11. So we are at this line. I just remove this breakpoint and say F11. So it will just step into that function. So this is all about how we can step into and step over. Okay. Okay, so how I just forgot to mention how to set a breakpoint. So say if you want to set a breakpoint at particular line, say I want to say it at line number 8 or say 7, line number 7. So either you can click F9 to set a breakpoint with this shortcut, and again F9 to remove it, or you can see this vertical gray line on which you can simply click left mouse button to set it, and again click on that same point to remove it. So that is pretty much simple, straightforward. Now we will look a couple of windows which are very helpful in debugging process. So first one is local window. Locals are all the variables. This window lists on all the variables in which your current execution context is. So for example, we are in the main function, and all the variables in the main function scope will be listed down in the local window. So here you can see num1, num2, we have three variables, result, num1, num2, and result. If we go to this function, it will list down all the variables from this scope, that is local. Then next thing we should know is watch window. So say for example, you don't want to look the values of variables from a scope, all the variables from the scope, but you are interested in a particular variable. So I will say right click on that and add to watch. So we have added a variable which we are particularly interested in. So this is the one way to add it to watch, or you can simply type it what you want to, what you are looking for, num2, say for example. Okay, so these are the two basic windows you must know actually, yeah. So next thing, how you can monitor your variables. So we have added variables, or we have local window in which you can monitor the values of your variables. So say for example, right now the execution is at the start of the program, so we have garbage values in all the variables. So as and when you go on executing lines one by one, values will get assigned to variables and the same will be reflected in the windows. So say for example, if I press F10, we are currently at this line, so it will assign 4 value to num1. So the value of num1 should be changed to 4 at this point as well as in the local window. So say F10, so you can see the change value will be displayed in a red color, so you can see it. Similarly for num2, and once you execute this line, it will change the value of result. Okay, and now it should save 10 into your result. Okay, so here you can see 10, which is currently changed value. So latest updated value will be displayed into red. So this is how we can make use of watch window and local window to monitor your variables. The next important thing, and you must know about call stack. So call stack is basically used to look for the calls from which function you have called this function. So for example, if we come to this point, execution, then, and you want to look from which function we have came to this function, you can simply go to call stack window and you can see from which point we have came to this function. So you can see a green line when I double click on that particular line. So currently we are at this line. Okay, we are at this line, and from this particular line, line number 16, we have came into this function. So if you double click on this line, go to it will just point your cursor to that line number. So right now we have very simple small code, so you can easily see from which function, from which point you came into this function. But if you have thousands of lakhs of lines of code, in that this window is very much useful to understand the flow of your program. So this is all about basics of debugging stuff. There are lots of other features in the debugging as well, so we'll try to cover it in upcoming videos. That is how to attach a running program, how to debug a remote process, or how to set a conditional breakpoints, or how to look at different threads, how to look at different modules which are loaded into your project, and all the stuff. If you like this tutorial, please click on the like and subscribe for more videos. If you have any comments, queries, please do write into comment box. And if you want me to talk about particular feature of Visual Studio, please also write into comments so that I can create a video for that. Thanks.